Okay, so let's continue with our car. Now we're going to start by making the wheels, and then we'll come back and add some more detail to the car. So to make the wheels, you first want to make sure that you head back into object mode. Now this is very important because otherwise the wheels will be part of the same object as the body, and we don't want that. You want the wheels to be separate objects. So click into object mode, then go over to your create panel, and you want to create a cylinder. And at the moment the cylinder is sitting inside the car, I think. Yeah, there it is. So what I'm going to do is just move it using the arrows like this. Now obviously at the moment it's facing the wrong way. I need to rotate it. So we're going to learn a new shortcut here. So the Blender shortcut to rotate is R. So tap the R key. Now when you first tap R, it seems to just rotate any old how all over the place, and it's not very helpful at all. So whenever you press R, you have to follow it by pressing either X, Y or Z, depending on which way you want to rotate. So if I press X, you can see that I'm rotating around the red X axis. If I press Y, I'm rotating around the green Y axis. That's the one that I want. But let's just see what Z does. Kind of spins it like a turntable. So let's go back to Y. And now I need to try and get the right angle. So to get from perfectly upright to lying on its side is going to be 90 degrees. So I still haven't clicked the mouse yet. I'm now going to type in 90 and I'm done. So let's do that one more time. Undo. So I'm pressing R to rotate. I'm pressing Y for the Y axis. Yours might be X, depends which way you started making the car. Followed by 90, return. And as you can see, the wheel is now facing the right way. Now I'm going to head into edit mode and actually start to edit the wheel. And the first thing I want to do is to use face mode, right click that face there, then just move it to make more of a wheel shape like that. Now don't worry about the size of the wheel at the moment, that's not important, we can change that afterwards. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to move my mouse away from the orange dot because I'm going to use I to inset, and this is going to create the tyre part of the wheel, like that. And at this point I now want to extrude inwards, so tap E to extrude and push it in about that much. Now we're going to do I again, and this wants to go all the way in to about there, like that. Now this next bit's quite clever, so watch carefully. What I need to do, keeping that middle circle selected, hold shift, and I need to select every other face like this, and this is going to allow us to create spokes, kind of like alloys on our wheel. So now that I've done that, I can just go ahead and use E to extrude and pull all of that out to about there. There we go. Now you could also apply that modifier that we applied to the wheel. So I'm going to head over to the modifiers panel. I'm going to switch on bevel. But for this, because the wheel's got more intricate detail, you're probably going to want to lower the width value. So you can just click and drag left. I'm going to go down to about 0.01, something like that. It's very subtle. Perfect. So now I'm going to head back into object mode, and you can see that I've got the car object and the wheel object. And at this point it's time to get the wheel to actually fit where it's supposed to go. So I'm going to press S to scale, move the mouse away first, S to scale, and shrink it down, try and get it roughly the right size, and then I've just got to do a lot of moving around to try and position it where it should be. So from that side, this side, and you're kind of looking for something like that. I might make mine just a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that will do. Now that we've made one wheel, what we're going to do is duplicate it to create the other 4 wheels. And this is going to involve using a new shortcut. So with the wheel selected, you want to press Shift and D on the keyboard. Shift D. And that makes a copy of it, a duplicate like this. But at the moment, it's kind of just free floating all over the place. Now, what you want to do, after you've pressed Shift D, before you click the mouse, you want to press one of the axes that you'd like to move the new duplicated wheel along. So if I press X, you can see that it's moving it along the X axis, not the one that I want. Z will move it up and down, and of course Y, in my case, lets me move it along the car this way. Again, you might have to use X, depending on which way you started making the car. So there we go, now I've got both those wheels in place. Now I'm going to hold Shift and right click so that both of those wheels are selected, and I can now Shift D and duplicate both of them. And I'm going to press X this time, although I'll probably have to move those again in a minute because I'm now going to rotate them, because of course they're facing the wrong way. So to rotate, both wheels are still selected. I'm going to have to rotate around the X axis to do this. Sorry, the Y axis. So I'm going to tap R to rotate, which kind of does this at the moment. And if I press Y, you can see that now they rotate like this. And this time it's 180 degrees. So I'm going to type 180, enter, and we're done. Just pull them this way a little bit. I can even look underneath the car to make sure that they line up. Same amount on both sides. And there we go. So that is those are the wheels finished. Now let's go ahead and add a little more detail to the car. So I need to right click the car and go into edit mode, so I'm editing the car object. Now to create additional detail, we've talked about this before, you need to add more faces, and one way to do that is to use loop, cut and slide. And remember, I did tell you a shortcut for that, which is Control R. So loop, cut and slide, and what I'm going to do this time is add a new loop cut, just one, to divide up these bits here like that. And now that I've done that, I'm actually able to try and round out this car a bit more, because if you look here, this is rather pointy, and it'd be much better if I could right click, hold shift, grab those and just pull those out a little bit like that. You see now it's a much rounder appearance, and you could do that again with this one, but it's tiny subtle amounts, like barely moving it like that, just to give it a slightly rounded look. And you could repeat that on the back. So I'm going to select that one, and that one, and I'm going to get that one, and that one as well, and just pull ever so slightly, just a tiny amount, just to create a more rounded look like that. And now you can repeat that process all along the side of the car. But I'm going to show you a little trick here. I mentioned in the last video that if you're trying to create a long kind of line of selected edges or faces, there is a shortcut to do this, and it's called Edge Select. Now what you do, you hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and you right click an edge like this. So if I hold Alt and right click this edge, you'll see that it selects that entire edge all the way around like that. Now from here, obviously I can't just use the arrows to move, because it's going to move like this. That's not good at all. So in order to do this now, what we're going to do is use scale. So if I tap S to scale, you can see that the whole thing kind of scales outwards like this, which is still not what I want, because I don't really want to be scaling the front and the back. I've already moved those. I only want to scale along the X axis in this case. So having pressed S to scale, I can now press X, and you'll see that only the two sides are coming out. So I'm just going to move that out a tiny little bit like that, and you can see that I've just kind of rounded that out a little bit. I'm now going to repeat that process, so hold Alt, right click to get an edge loop. I'm going to press S to scale, which is now doing all of them, but then X to limit it just to the X axis, and now come out just, I think like that will be fine. And I might do another one here, hold Alt, right click, S to scale and X, just a little bit like that. And actually I might just bring this one out a tiny bit. So Alt, right click, S to scale only on the X axis, tiny bit like that. And you see that now the outside of the car is a little bit more rounded. And you could exaggerate that even more if you wanted to, but that's kind of the look we're going for. Now an added benefit of putting these additional loops around the car is that we've now got a face, if I go into face mode, here and here, which we can turn into headlights. So I'm going to select both of them using Shift to multiple select. I'm going to tap I. Now I've only got to tap I once this time because they're not joined together, so they will always inset separately, so like that. And then I'm just going to extrude in a little bit, just like we did with the windows, to kind of create headlights. And then, as a final bit of detail for the car, we're going to add some door handles. So I want the door handle to be about here. So I need to add another edge loop here, Control R, and I'm going to slide that edge loop across to about there. So now I can go ahead and switch into face mode, select that face there, and I'm just going to use inset. So let's line this up so I can get a good view of it. Move the mouse away from the dot, I to inset, and you want to bring it in quite small this time, so it's kind of like a door handle size, and then extrude outwards, just like that. Maybe just push that in maybe a little bit more. So now I'm going to switch around and do the same thing on this side. So I want that one just there. Let's zoom in. I'm going to tap I to inset to about there, E to extrude. There we go. So you could spend more time now adding more loop cuts and just moving things around, trying to make a much smoother looking car. For example, I might take those three on the top there and just pull them back a bit. I could even push them down a little bit just to round out the front of the car a bit, but you get the idea. You can now invest time just trying to make this look as cool as possible.